Welcome to Navigating Advocacy, the true crime podcast that goes beyond storytelling to ignite change and seek justice. I'm Melissa.
And I'm Whitney. As true crime enthusiasts turned passionate advocates, we've seen the power of storytelling raise awareness about unsolved crimes and bring hope to victims and their families. We hope to inspire action and promote positive change within the true crime community.
Our mission is simple. We provide a platform for victims and their families to share their stories, to be heard, and find solidarity. But we don't stop there. We offer practical guidance to our listeners on how they can actively make a difference in their own communities.
In each episode, we'll discuss a different unsolved case. We'll examine the details, highlight potential leads, and strive to spark new interests that may help advance the investigation. Our goal is to reignite hope and ultimately bring justice where it's long overdue.
But this podcast is about more than just a conversation. It's about building a community of like-minded individuals who share a common purpose, making a real difference in the fight for justice. Whether you're a seasoned true crime fan or new to the genre, we invite you to join us on this journey of discovery and advocacy.
Together, we can create a wave of change. We're here to empower you to also become advocates for change, no matter where or who you are. We are Navigating Advocacy.
We discuss topics that may be sensitive to listeners. Discretion is advised. This week, we are navigating advocacy in Rhode Island, North Providence to be exact. North Providence has a population of 34,000 people and is considered the smallest officially incorporated town in the smallest state in the country. Other than that, this small town isn't known for much. They have a couple parks and schools, but that's about it. The city of Providence is just a short drive away and is the largest city in Rhode Island and has much more going on, with almost 200,000 people living there. Kimberly Sue Morse was born on January 24th, 1967, to parents Edward and Ruth Morse of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. The couple already had 3 teenage children when Kimberly came along. She had 1 older brother and 2 older sisters. Being the baby of the family with such a significant age gap between her and her siblings made them all fiercely protective of Kimberly. She was an outgoing girl all her life. She loved her family and meeting new people. Everyone that knew her would say that she was a goal-oriented person that was kind to everyone. Kimberly grew up in Maine and graduated high school in 1985. After she graduated, she would travel and take different jobs, all in the service industry. She loved working with people. That is how she thrived at waitressing and other customer service-based positions. Kim was also very interested in fitness. She even became a bodybuilder. She would eventually move on to entering bikini competitions at local establishments to win cash prizes. This young woman was outgoing, beautiful, and full of life. She was known to frequent the local clubs and bars where she would be the life of the party. In 1997, Kimberly moved to Rhode Island, where she took a job at the Foxy Lady Gentlemen's Club as a part-time dancer. She was around 30 years old and decided the part-time flexible schedule would allow her to continue her education. So Kimberly enrolled in Warwick Academy of Beauty Culture, hoping to become an esthetician. Yes, she was a party girl who loved having a good time, but Kim did not touch drugs. She was not a big drinker or into a risky lifestyle. She was a very cautious woman, so much so that she carried pepper spray with her everywhere and took self-defense classes. She knew her line of work could put her in harm's way, so she took the necessary steps to protect herself as much as she could. Kimberly had quite a few admirers, to say the least. She had regulars at the club that would shower her with gifts. These gifts could be anything from electronics, helping pay for her bills, trips, vacations, and even a Jeep. In the summer of 1999, Kimberly's father dies, and she and one of her sisters decide to take a road trip to the other sister's house in Ohio that winter, kind of for some sisterly bonding time, considering they haven't spent much time together. They are, remember, much older than Kimberly.
Mhm.
Kimberly was more of the age of her nieces and nephews than she was her brothers and sisters. During the trip, an ex-boyfriend of Kim's kept calling and texting her. He was not happy that Kim broke up with him. On January 18th, 2000, Kimberly went to work at the Foxy Lady Club. She signed out like usual and was escorted out to her vehicle, which was standard procedure for the dancer's safety. This was around 1:45 a.m. We know Kimberly made it home to her basement apartment where she lived alone. We also know the door to her apartment was unlocked, possibly slightly opened when she arrived home. So she could have already been thinking something was up at that point, but she still went inside the house. She took off her gloves and set down her keys before being attacked from behind. Kimberly was stabbed multiple times and then her throat was slit before she was dragged to the bathroom, stripped of her clothes, and put into the bathtub. Now, we don't know if the killer then stayed around the apartment or left for a while. All we know is that 15 hours later, neighbors would call the fire department to report the smell of smoke coming from this basement apartment. Once there, the firemen were able to put out the fire, but they knew they needed police on the scene. It was something out of a horror film. Blood was everywhere, dragging marks from the kitchen where the front door was into the bathroom, and then the remains of a woman inside the bathtub. This woman had so much going on. She was looking forward to so much just to be killed inside her home. January 19th, 2000 was a Wednesday, and Kimberly was supposed to be in class at Warwick Academy at 9 a.m. She only had another month before she graduated and would be on her way to quitting her job as a dancer and starting to work in a career she was excited about. Her friends, coworkers, and classmates would all try to call her that day, but all calls and messages would go unanswered. They wouldn't know what happened to Kim until that evening when firefighters would find the gasoline-soaked, burned body of their loved one. As for the crime scene, there are various things that are unusual. Authorities believe the person that did this had to have known Kimberly and possibly had a key to her apartment. There was also rage behind their actions, which usually means someone very close to the victim. However, there were also items taken from the apartment, items of value, like a computer and a camera, which were gifts from patrons of the club. A safe that was thought to contain cash was also taken, along with jewelry and a stuffed teddy bear. This, to me, would be the first big lead for police, because if they could figure out who gave her this stuffed animal, he would be a suspect. Or it could be anyone else that possibly was jealous of gifts that she was getting from other men. And therefore, all of the items that were taken, could this been a final act of keeping other men away from her?
They're really leaning on this jealous lover. I absolutely love HelloFresh. I do not know what I did without it. Being able to skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable is why I absolutely agree it is America's #1 meal kit.
I just love that all the meals come with pre-portioned ingredients. This helps cut down on food waste, while step-by-step instructions make cooking a breeze, not a chore. My kids even love to get involved. Did you know you can get more than just dinners from HelloFresh?
Now that you can add snacks, sides, and more to your weekly order, I only go to the store for cleaning supplies.
Go to hellofresh.com/Cabernet50 and use code Cabernet50 for 50% off plus free shipping.
That's hellofresh.com/Cabernet50 and use code Cabernet50 for 50% off plus free shipping and get America's #1 meal kit today.
True crime lovers are always looking for new and engaging content.
The Already Gone podcast covers stories from Michigan and the Great Lakes region. Cases you haven't heard before, like the Mayo Hunters or the murder of 16-year-old Justin Mello, plus better-known cases like the death of Jane Bashara and Illinois' own Lori Dan. Already Gone started in 2016, so there is a big back catalog for you to enjoy. Find Already Gone on Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, or your favorite podcatcher.
I believe at first, especially after finding out everything that Kimberly was gifted. It could have been even a wife of one of her club members, that type of thing. Somebody that was angry about the attention she was getting. Police did say that they looked into all of her regulars there and they couldn't find a connection.
Okay.
The teddy bear thing does lead me to believe that it had to be someone that was infatuated with her. It just seems so random that they would take a teddy bear along with the more expensive items. Again, it's strange that this person would either hang out around the apartment or leave and come back. So she was soaked in gasoline. So did this person leave and go buy the gas? Did he stay this whole time? It just, if you're leaving and coming back, you're putting yourself up for more and more opportunities to be seen by the neighbors, the other people that lived in the apartment complex. DNA would be collected from the crime scene. However, in 2019, law enforcement stated there has been no match, which would lead us to believe it has been tested against certain people. But then they also went on to say that they had no plans to do any additional testing until all other efforts are exhausted. So this kind of boggles my mind. Why would they not use something that is almost foolproof? But I'm thinking maybe they only have a small amount left of this DNA and they didn't want to waste it in case they find the actual killer and need it for a conviction. There are just so many questions in this case, even when it comes to the physical evidence. They did provide an update about an anonymous email they received in 2014. This tip led them all the way to Michigan. The detectives on the case would work with Michigan State Police. This tip would lead to several people being crossed off the persons of interest list, but no suspects were named or arrests actually made. So this is another thing that boggles my mind. They get a tip, they brings them all the way to Michigan, but the only thing that they gain from it, or the only thing they have publicly stated, is now we can cross some people off. So does this person have ties to Michigan? And if they didn't have ties, that's how they got crossed off. This just boggles my mind. And this is what I'm talking about when I say trying to read between the lines of what law enforcement is telling us to get more information. Because what does that mean?
Well, everything about this case so far that you're telling me is really bringing me back to last season's Rhode Island case that also happened in Providence of Lori Malloy.
Oh my gosh, yes.
She was also found attacked in her apartment with what seemed to be someone she knew. She was also found in a bed in the bathroom. There was no fire related in that case, but there's some similarities here.
There was, as I was doing my research, there was also someone who had left a comment saying there was two other women, and I believe it was in the 90s. So in the late 90s, so right before Kimberly would have been killed. They were both dancers and living in the Providence area as well. So it's something is definitely going on.
Yeah.
I just really want to know what led them to Michigan. Well, I really want to know what they found out in Michigan and what this email said. Did someone that knew Kimberly reside in that area? I mean, it has been years since that tip came in, and we still do not know who killed Kimberly or what that anonymous email actually said. But let's talk about possible suspects. Well, first off, the ex-boyfriend of Kim's that she had recently broken up with is who law enforcement looked at first. This was a bodybuilder type guy that may or may not have been on steroids at the time of Kim's death. I would assume that this is person of interest number one because he was the last significant other of Kim's. And in the months before her death, they were not exactly on good terms. Kimberly's family had even stated that they believed this guy was involved. He had been, I don't want to say threatening, but like I said, he was calling her a lot, texting her, and he made a point that her sister had reported that he said, girls don't break up with him, he breaks up with girls. So the fact that Kim broke up with him, he was not happy about that. Her family also told authorities that Kimberly was afraid of him and that he had even tried to break into her house at one point. Kimberly wanted to change the locks and was like talking to her family about this because, again, she was very cautious about her safety. And it could be her wanting to change the locks, could be because of this man. We do have to take into consideration Kimberly's work at the Foxy Lady. She had admirers, people that would give her these lavish gifts. Did one of these men get jealous enough to commit murder? Or did she reject someone and they couldn't deal with that? Was it a wife or a girlfriend of one of the men that was paying way too close attention to Kimberly? Police do believe the person that did this horrific crime had a key to her apartment. With no forced entry and how cautious Kimberly was, there was no way that she would have left the door unlocked, especially with the fear of her ex-boyfriend breaking in again. Could it have been someone that worked for the apartment complex? Possibly a maintenance man or a property manager. They would have access to her apartment as well. There were between 15 and 30 persons of interest at one time. But honestly, that's the last thing we know about this case. The podcast Murder, She Told has interviews with Kimberly's family and friends, and it was an amazing resource when learning all about Kimberly. If you know anything about the murder of Kimberly Morse, please contact the North Providence Police Department at 401-233-1430 or call their anonymous tip line at 401-719-1449. It is insane that this area has had so many deaths of women, young women in that area. And it seems like a lot of them just happened in their own home, which is even more terrifying.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, though, because Lori Malloy was in the early 90s. This is early 2000s. If there's two other women, which Lori wasn't a dancer at this particular club that Kimberly was, but it makes me wonder exactly what, if there is truly a connection there. I think there's too many similarities.
It's definitely a lot. Agreed.
And I wonder if law enforcement has put those things together, and that's why they're staying so tight-lipped, is that they're trying to build a case.
Agreed. It's just been so long. I just wish there was more information put out that could help.
Yeah, absolutely. Just by listening to our content, you too are advocating for justice for these families. Thank you for making a difference in their lives as well.
We want to share a few ways you can support us to continue our mission. You can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $5 per month, or a simple rate and review on your favorite podcast platform helps us get in front of someone who may know something.
We will continue to shed a light on the forgotten victims, untangle the webs of deceit, and examine the eerie coincidences that make these cases so compelling.
We believe that working together can affect change and create a world where victims are heard, justice is served, and communities are empowered to make a difference, no matter where or who they are.